I'm going to allow Adam to introduce himself, but just to give Adam some context of how he arrived here. We share articles that we are reading about all the time. Sometimes everybody responds, sometimes we don't, but this is one that you were mentioned, and this is obviously right in Pharrell's wheelhouse, but why don't we allow you to sort of introduce yourself and who you are, and then we can kind of take it from there.
Sounds good. So I'm Adam Frank. I'm a professor of astrophysics at the University of Rochester. I've been an astrophysicist forever. And I also do a lot of astrobiology. I'm very interested in the, life in the universe, the search for life in the universe. I also do a lot of writing, popular writing, for, various venues, New York Times, The Atlantic. I have 3 or 4 books, one on science and religion, one on the history of time and cosmology. The most recent one was about climate change and aliens. So I'm interested in a lot of different topics. I'm also a big Marvel fan from going way back. I was the science advisor for Doctor Strange, and yeah, and like that. And I play a lot of video games. I really like video games.
Gamer, okay.
And science fiction.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun.
So there you go. That's me.
Well, the article that we read was talking about if an industrial civilization lived before we were here, and I would love for you to sort of explain that premise, because it really made me think. Maybe everything just is cyclical, and who's to prove that we aren't? It doesn't happen that way. So just sort of like what you are doing in that field, and how you kind of came up with that.
The way that I came to that was I was doing research. This has been a big project of mine, thinking about climate change. I do a lot of work with climate change, and I do a lot of work with climate denial, just cover my writing. So I was thinking about different ways of understanding what happens with climate, and particularly the idea that planets and life always evolve together. And in some sense, if there any other civilization on any other planet would probably trigger climate change as well. That climate change may be kind of a consequence, an expected consequence of developing an industrial civilization. Which is a pretty out there idea. But I needed to learn some things. So I needed to learn more about climate. And so I went down to the Goddard Institute of Space Studies, which is on 113th and Broadway, which is a weird place for a major NASA climate facility. And I know those guys down there, and I went to meet with Gavin Schmidt, who's the head of it, great climate scientist. And I'd first met with other people, and I'm telling them my idea, and they're all like, "Yeah, climate, aliens, okay." And so then I get into Gavin's office, expecting the eye roll, right? And I start to tell him that what I'm trying to do. And I'm going through we want to understand about industrial civilizations and their planets and on other planets, because we know there's never been an industrial civilization on Earth. And he just goes, "Well, how do you know that?" Right? And it was like the record script, what? I was like, what? And he got on this conversation with me about the idea of well, how would you know whether or not there had been a civilization 10s, 20, 100 million years ago? Because everything on the Earth gets wiped out. All the surface gets completely restructured on those timescales. So, forget about any kind of old buildings. You're not going to do the Planet of the Apes underground subway station thing. So we got started on this project of really thinking about what an industrial civilization would leave 100 million years afterwards. And that got us thinking about what we're going to leave 100 million years afterwards. So it's not necessarily that I was I don't believe that there was a previous industrial civilization. But the question is, how do planets and a civilization evolve together, and what gets left? And really the important question, especially because of climate change now, is, what will happen to us, or what will happen to, what is the long-term fate of a civilization like ours? Are we going to make it, or are we going to, sort of just burn ourselves out?
Yeah, we're going to burn ourselves out. We know that.
We ain't gonna make it.
I'm hoping I want at least another 30, 40,000 years of human civilization.
No, we ain't gonna make it.
Yeah, but that would be because we will have, made it off the planet and found some other exoplanets and take some of the stress and pressure off of living together here. We're crazy. We're crazy human beings.
Yeah. We are crazy
because
human beings. Yeah.
The thing is,
I agree with that. I agree that the long-term the long-term fate of humanity, if we can make it through climate change, right? If we can make it through the next 100 years or so,
We won't.
and have a sustainable civilization, then the future is the solar system. Like that'll be the beginning.
Yeah.
Is the solar system, and then maybe the stars.
Yeah, that's inevitable because the number one factor that you have to always include is human nature, and human nature is not a thoughtful. It's not a thoughtful essence. It's a selfish essence. So when you add that, in along with the other essence of hubris, it's just not mathematically possible, right? We're going to continue to multiply, and as we continue to multiply, that's bringing in more and more hubris. Should be more humanity, right? But it'll bring in more hubris. And it should bring in more humility, but again, it will be more hubris. And the human conditions should be the number one factor, not, human nature. Some of the stuff that I sit around and think about, there are really, studious individuals that really do serious, comprehensive deep dives on these subjects and put together like amazing research teams to answer some of these questions. Because I do believe that this was not the first time. I don't. I think if you consider the fact that the poles naturally shift as much as they do, they always have, right? And I mean, it's just simple like physics, right? Pluck a penny on the top of a tabletop.
About 100,000 years,
spin
about
in
100,000 year time scale for the flip.
Yeah, the wobble, right? And proof of which is why we have a leap year, right? So we know that the wobble shifts.
Hold on. I'm lost. I'm lost. I'm trying to keep up. Slow down on the penny joint. What do you mean?
So the poles are like the most centered part of when you pluck a penny.
Yeah, okay,
the pole is like
so when as
the polarity, the top and the bottom, right? The north and the south.
I'm back.
And so you know how like first it might be like wobbling, it might be spinning perfectly.
Yeah.
Then it starts to wobble. When it wobbles, it starts to tilt and go around, right? That's our wobble. And math-wise, like, you have to you make up for that with like leap years.
That's why I got lost. Why? How?
Well, it's about the spin, right? Because, the Earth doesn't, right? You get how many days are there in a year, right? The spin of the Earth doesn't perfectly match in terms of day. Like a day is 24 hours.
Yeah, okay,
it doesn't perfectly match the time it takes to go around the sun. So you got to add,
you gotta
a leap
compensate.
day, a leap minute, just to keep it all.
I'm here.
But it's right. The Earth is a top and it's wobbling,
Right.
and then the whole thing is going around the sun.
Right. So that wobble. At a certain point, I think I could be wrong, but I think it's every 26,000 years.
It's about that, I think.
Yeah, the poles shift
comes around,
because
it comes back.
Right?
Yeah.
So when that wobble happens, that shift could move, I don't want to exaggerate because then I'll have Neil deGrasse Tyson, typing bull.
Get me.
But it happens, so like every 26,000 years, we go into a different age. Like right now we're in the age of Aquarius. We were just in the age of like Pisces.
26,000 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so
when it wobbles.
When it wobbles like that, the poles shift. So the center of the most centrifugal place of like gravity in the middle of it switches, and when that shifts, right, everything from like oceans, some of the oceans can sort of empty out. Some of the land masses that we have now can become flooded. And that's the reason why we have like fossils in the tallest mountains. You're like, okay, well, how did that fish, I just dug straight into the top of a mountain peak and there's a whale jaw. Like, how did it get there? Because at one point,
it was flooded.
That used to be in the ocean.
Got it. I get that.
Right, Mr. Frank?
Well, that's also the plate tectonics, right?
That as well.
The continents are moving around, so that's a little bit less than the swing, because we're not talking 26,000 years, which is the time for the precession to go one revolution, is tiny compared to like the hundreds of millions of years that the continents are moving. So like Rochester, we've got fossils from like, equatorial sea creatures because this land used to be down in the equator.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, so I'm sorry,
The
I
amount
left
of
out plate
time.
tectonics, but that's also part of the equation.
Cool. I got a lot of questions.
So when that happens, things like, listen, this is where you go, okay, Pharrell, you've gone too far. I believe in Atlantis. I believe that, the continents were once in a different place. We know because of what you just mentioned, that plate
shifted.
tectonics,
They were,
we know
yeah.
that the continents have been shifting.
Yeah.
Right? But I believe that the Atlantic Ocean is because of where Atlantis used to be. I do believe that.
But ain't that saying the same thing? They shifted.
Yes,
why
but
you
not everybody subscribes that there was another civilization.
Yeah. No, I'm not an Atlantis fan.
We gonna
I
get
don't
there.
really know, but Atlantis. Here's the thing: when we talk about our ancient, the thing that was in our paper was, like I said, 100 million years ago. I think what I know about when people talk about Atlantis, they're talking like maybe 10,000 years ago, and the difference in time is time. I mean, this is the thing about being an astronomer. There's so much time, right? The Earth is so old. It's so hard to wrap your mind around the eons.
Yeah.
And what can happen in those eons.
How old is the Earth?
It's totally freaky deaky.
They're saying 4.8 billion years is the Earth, right?
Yeah, about that. 4.5,
Okay.
4.8. Life starts around 3.5, maybe even a little bit earlier. And then you don't get animals. You don't get multicellular animals until about 600 million years ago.
So 600,
those are all insane
Okay,
long time.
help me.
So of course, as a scientist, I'm locked into sort of how we can prove anything or what data we have. So, the mechanisms that I see that I need to have to be able to explain things have got to come from fossil records or fossil records of magnetism. You can actually tell how Earth's magnetic poles have flipped by looking at rocks and seeing that it's like a tape recording. The rocks, the little elements in the rocks flip back and forth every time the north and south pole flip. So,
okay. So that kind of answered one of my questions. Like, what's like one of the most reliable ways to, back up those, how old
How do you
Earth
know?
is, like those claims or those. I don't wanna say claims,
No,
like it's
you
not
got to
real,
come up
but-
with. That's a great question, right? And that's kind of what the paper was about. We were saying, like, if there had been a civilization, say during dinosaur times, right, which is like 100 million years ago, how would you know? How would you be able to tell, first of all, that there was a civilization? And how could you date it? How would you know that it was 100 million years ago and not something that, from 30 years ago? And so this is what's crazy. This is why I love science, right? People find these incredible, brilliant ways of figuring things out. So the main thing for dating the Earth is we use isotopes, which are basically, you've got elements, you got carbon, hydrogen, neon. And every one of those has like its cousins. It's got like versions. There's carbon that has 12 particles in the nucleus, and then there's carbon with like 13. And some of them decay. Some of them radioactively decay. They'll spontaneously turn from carbon 13 to carbon 12. And that's a clock. The rate, exactly the rate in which the carbon 13 is turning into carbon 12. And you can use that as a way of dating. You get a piece of rock and you can figure out, how old is this rock? You can use the fact of the radioactive decay to say like, this rock is 300 million years old. And so that's the way that we can put dates onto things in the past.
Got it.
And one of the things we found in this paper was that the only way we'd be able to tell whether there was a previous civilization, because there's no fossils, forget that. The fossil record is not very good. Like it just doesn't, you don't get, everything doesn't fossilize. So if you had a civilization that lasted for 10,000 years, which would be a long time, we've only lasted in terms of technology for 100, right?
Yeah.
There's no way, probably you'd never get a single fossil out of it. If it lasted for 10,000 years and disappeared, that would be the end. So it's all isotopes in the strata. Like when you go hiking and you see like all the rock layers. Those strata, every one of those strata, you can take the rock, chip it apart, put it in a laboratory, and get figure out the radioactive decay rates, and say, this rock is 300 million years old. The rock right below it is 350 million years old. The rock right below that is 400 million years old. So that's what we've said, that the only way you'd be able to tell is you'd have to look in the rock strata and look for like weird stuff. Things like maybe plastic particles, right? We're leaving a lot of little plastic particles everywhere. I mean, it's crazy that you can do that, right? Just by looking at rock records. So that was the way we said you would be able to, you'd have to really do it. Nobody's ever done this. No one's ever tried to look, but that would be the only way to tell whether there was a previous civilization.
Got it. So it's sort of like how they found out how old a tree is when they look at the rings, basically.
Right,
Cool,
right.
cool.
Except now exactly, and now you're using atoms. You're using like the kinds of atoms there are in a rock to be able to tell how old the rock is.
Super fascinating. I think the answer is at the bottom of the sea of these oceans.
Well,
That's what I think. If we really want to find it, I bet you it's down there. But that's so deep.
We ain't been there, right?
I don't know if we have the technology to go all the way to the bottom of the sea, the ocean floor of some of them.
I think most of them we've been able to go down. You can't. It's hard to do a lot when you get really down deep. You know, the pressures are so high. But I'm not an expert in this. But
So, Mr. Frank, can you answer this question? Is it still true that we only understand 5% of the observable universe?
yeah, that's true.
Okay.
We're not doing good, are we?
Okay.
We need more funding. No.
So
Now-
definitely life out there.
And the universe is made of
Stars, planets.
no. Like,
Quasars.
what's the percentage of dark energy and dark matter?
Yeah. Okay. So the matter we're made out of, which we would call normal matter,
27%?
that constitutes now really only a few percent of the, and then the dark matter. Then you have dark matter. You've got some kind of matter that you can't see, and that is on the order of we're looking at like 20% or so, or 30% actually, altogether with the matter. And then like 70% of the universe is dark energy. Dark matter and dark energy are different things, but they're both. The reason we use dark is because we don't have a clue what they are. So basically, the stuff that you see in the universe, every galaxy, every planet, constitutes just like a small fraction, like a tiny fraction of the stuff out there. And we don't really know much of anything about the dark stuff.
Okay, so you said 70% is dark energy, and you said 20% is dark matter.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
I think we should petition to call it black energy and black matter. That's all I'm saying.
Over dark.
Personally, that's what it looks like.
So
I
listen,
think you should go for
Right?
it, right?
I think we
That
should.
would also change
you
culture.
might get to, there's definitely life out there.
Huh?
There's definitely other lives. Yeah,
Yes.
you gotta be.
Yo, listen, the math alone. Forget if you put all the dark energy, and he just said 20% is dark matter, and 70% is dark energy, and everything left
This is what we see.
is what we can see. And I thought it was 5%, but I guess he's saying it's 10. You know,
No, I think five is around 4 point something.
Okay.
So just like the numbers. I think it's about 5% normal matter, 20% ish of dark matter, and then the rest 70% is dark energy.
okay, cool. All right. So maybe that's 75% dark energy. But
Darkness.
yeah,
Yeah. Right.
So here's the thing. If we don't know, we only know from the math and the equations that they put together, but they've never been able to see it. But the math suggests from some of the effects of dark energy and some of the effects from the dark matter that these two entity type energy forms or existences, if you will, exist, but we can't see it, right? There's a bunch we can't see, right? You've never seen a gamma ray a day in your life. Doesn't mean that it isn't there. But if you, Mr. Frank, if you were a molecule in the elbow of a human being, you would never know that there's
big toe.
such thing as a nose. You would doubt it. You would say, oh, and especially, and you're a scientist. You get to be a scientist in the equation still. You would never believe that there was a nose. Never. All you know is from the effects of what you're deducing, there's oxygen coming in the body, but you can't see it.
Yeah. Right.
But you know that there's oxygen in there, and you know that something's happening, and you know whatever it is, it's not coming through you is the molecule or anything around you.
Okay.
But if someone were to say, hey, there's a such thing because there's a nose, is because we're inside of a body or the universe. And you would say, nope, there's no thing. And that other person says, no, I'm telling you. And there's also, there's 2 ears. There's not only 1 ear, there's 2 ears. And you'd be like, nope, not possible.
You're crazy. What are you talking about?
Yep. So, you wouldn't even know that you were in an elbow. All you would know is that you're surrounded by 75% dark energy and 20% dark matter. And you somehow are stuck in 5% of metacognition only.
Right.
So the
Right.
Earth.
This
could be
is
Right.
this
could
is
be an
my
eyeball.
this is my
You heard me?
yeah, I heard you. This is my
On a body.
this is the way that I look at it when we think about the
Right.
universe. And
Yes.
and for me, the universe is God.
Well, that's okay. So the cool thing about science, let's start off with the science part, is that because of science, like that molecule in your elbow, like you said, if it was a good scientist molecule in somebody's elbow would be able to work it out, would be able to work its way through and say like, you know, I'm jiggling around in a weird way. I don't really understand it. So there must be blood flowing by me. And, you know, just like would be able to work, I must be in a body because I can tell sometimes the way, you know, I'm getting this radiation that I can detect. So they'd be able to work out that they were in this larger universe of a human being with a nose, you know, and that the human being was embedded on a planet. And that is the immense power that this human activity, right? And it's collective, it's human beings. It's not one, it's not just Einstein or Newton. Mm-hmm. You know, there's thousands and thousands of people working to do this, to put together these stories about who we are and where we are. And they blow our mind. They show us that, you know what? This is not all there is. And there's much more. So, you know, the first thing I would say in response is like, yeah, the cool thing about science is that you can see that there's dark energy and dark matter. But then, like you say, the unknown, you know, the parts of this that reach beyond us. I have no problem. I'm not one of these guys, scientists, who's like, oh, science and religion, they're totally opposite. You know, it depends on what you're talking about with religion, you know. But in general, science should point us to the sacred. You know, my first book was about science and religion.
Okay.
And there's definitely a sense of sacredness about what the feeling, you know, the immensity and you sound like you're expressing it. Like when you read these things, you're like, oh my God, you know, that's why I went into science.
Yeah. Well, I mean, religion tends to turn into a business at some point. But spirituality and spiritual doctrine, I think that's where you get me. And as you say, oh my God, it's like, you know, for me, if you ever want to know if a quote unquote religion is real, replace the word God in no matter what language it is and put universe there. And if it makes sense, then it usually checks out right.
Right.
Because to me, the universe and God is one.
Yeah. There's no, you know, it's the sense, and the thing it's about the sense of awe that you get. Like, so when I'm doing science and I encounter ideas, like again, because I'm a scientist, like astrology will never work for me. I'll never, you know, which I'm a Leo, okay, great. I meet other people who are kind of, you know, fits the bill, but that's not going to work. I'm never going to go down the road of astrology. But
wait. If you're only concentrating on your sun sign, of course.
I have a lot of friends. You know, a lot of my friends are into astrology.
Okay, but wait.
And they're always
that's
going to
like
have this conversation.
saying Leo is kind of like me saying to you, "Oh, you're a white male," and therefore you must like da 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 da. That's not. I mean, your astrological aspects are far more than just
right. I
you
know.
just
There's
being
the whole
a sun sign.
Yeah.
So come on, what time were you born?
I think 8:30 in the morning.
What time?
8:30 in the morning.
8:30 in the morning. Okay, and then
mom.
what date? What date and year?
Oh, I got no idea.
Say again?
Like what day of the week?
No. Sorry. What?
Birthday.
Oh, August 1st.
August 1st, and what year?
62.
62. And you said 3:30 in the morning?
8:30 in the morning.
8:30 in the morning.
8:30 in the morning, and where?
In Jersey.
in Manhattan, actually.
man.
And-
across the river, they had to cross the river.
And Manhattan.
All right, we about to.
Hopefully your friends have
Let's see what
told you
happens.
about like the rising sign and the moon sign. You know that also really.
Yeah, no, right. I get it. I get that. But I mean, okay, this is a whole other conversation about the statistics and such. But I guess what I am saying, my practice as a scientist, right? What it also always shows me is that there's this sense of awe, right? So whether it's astrology or whether you're doing science, when you're out in the forest or something, you can see that there's just so much going on, right? There's so much going on. Science is one way of apprehending that layers and layers of complexity. But, there's also contemplative practice, mindfulness practice or whatever. There's just a lot of ways to encounter it. But what I love about science is that it gives me a direct way to try and answer certain kinds of questions. Like, is there life in the universe?
Yes.
How could I find life in the universe?
Yeah.
So,
I definitely think that there's life.
What's your stance on aliens?
well, so I have, I'm the principal investigator on the first grant that NASA has given in a long time to study what are called technosignatures, which are, trying to find, using modern telescopes, trying to find signatures of intelligent technological life on other worlds. So, I think I'm gonna bet that it's out there, but I could be wrong. But of course, the only way to know is to find out, is to actually go look. There's a lot of arguments. There's a lot of arguments that would say microbial life, like the simplest life, super easy to make. Any planet that's got the rudimentary temperatures and liquid water, boom, you're gonna get it. Animal life, and in particularly things that can develop technologies, that may be hard. I mean, we're gonna have to see. That may be hard.
Yeah, I always think that that's such a linear way of looking at it. And I think, mankind's biggest problem is that at the center of anything that he ever does, he places himself in the middle of it, right? Why do they have to be humanoid?
I always say that.
Why can't they be?
Oh, they don't have to be. No. They don't have to be humanoid. Anything that develops technology, like... We don't have to, we're not looking. In fact, the odds that they're humanoid are probably zero. We're not gonna, I doubt this is what's funny about Star Trek, right? Every alien in Star Trek is just got like a prosthetic forehead, attachment, right? And, evolution, evolution probably, I'm gonna bet that evolution works in a similar way on different worlds because it's so basic, but the odds that it's gonna produce anything that looks like us, I think, is zero.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, we are
but what
we
would
are
it
the
look
way
like,
we are.
right? That's the question.
Because the gravity is what it is on this planet. So it naturally pulls everything down. So when you eat, everything pretty much goes straight down. Whereas on another planet where the gravity is probably nowhere near the same, their bodies probably and their systems probably evolved completely differently. Doesn't mean they can't get the technology.
Whoa, yeah, right. No, I agree totally. So we're not looking for human beings. When we look for technosignatures, we're looking for this is what's really cool. This is what's so much fun about this field, right? You got to try and work out in some systematic way, how will life evolve towards technologies, right? I don't know what they're going to look like. I don't know whether they're capitalists or communists. I mean, that's not even going to apply, right? It's going to be totally different. But what signatures can I see from, 20 light years away that I can detect and be able to say like, oh yeah, that's technology for sure. So like we're looking for stuff like city lights, artificial illumination. That's the main thing I always want people to understand when it comes to this field, is that we are so close now to having everything we need to be able to really find life. We don't have to wait for somebody to send us a signal. That was like 20 years ago. We can now look directly at these planets, at these exoplanets, and see the chemicals in their atmosphere. Do they have chemicals that are not natural, like chlorofluorocarbons or something? So, we're just on the edge. Like after, 2,000 years of yelling about this question about life, we are now finally going to be able to answer that question in the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Technosignatures is what it is?
Yeah.
So how you start? Like, where do you start? When you got the grant from NASA and they were like, go ahead, go. You got free reign. Find out. Do you just point a telescope in a direction, or like what was your process on that? Like,
this is the most fun. So I'm imagining it's a collaboration, right? We got a team of people, just like what you guys do I'm imagining, like, what do I know? But you get people together, you start throwing around ideas. You have somewhere you want to go. but you don't know exactly where that is, and you don't know exactly how you're going to get there. So in our case, what we were given the grant to do, not to look through the telescopes, we're not ready to do that. What we were given a grant to do was to figure out what you'd look for, right?
Okay.
Because that telescope, right, the James Webb Space Telescope cost $12 billion, right? Every second of observing time is worth its weight in gold. So you got to have things planned out. You got to have a good idea. Everything's got to be worked out beforehand. So what we started doing, we started asking ourselves, well, what kinds of things would any technological civilization, what kind of imprint would they make on their planet that you could see from 20 light years away, right? So that was the first question. So we went through things. We're like, could you see the satellites going around? If you had like a bunch of satellites going in orbit around the planet, would you be able to see that? No. Okay, put that one down. Would you be able to see things like chemicals in the atmosphere, pollution, or maybe they're purposely putting chemicals in the atmosphere? So we did a paper on that. We looked at chlorofluorocarbons, which is the stuff that they banned because it destroyed the ozone layer. But that's a chemical that there's no way. Nature's not going to produce that. You need an industry. So we just published a paper that said, wow, man, you could find this. You could look at a planet that was like 20 light years away, and you'd be able to detect chlorofluorocarbons in the atmosphere. And that would be like proof positive that there was a civilization on that planet. So, so that's one project we did. Now we're moving on to looking at if you take what you can imagine you might want to do if you have you're a technological species, you might take planets that are dead. Like, Mars really doesn't have anything going on. Maybe you want to cover Mars in solar panels, have it be, collect all that energy and beam it over to Earth or something, or just harvest it and do things with it. So we're looking at that. We call them service worlds. Maybe like the worlds that are uninhabitable in your solar system, you use for industry. So, it's like one project. We just start off, we start thinking about what we want to do, and then each project we take on until we're done. And then that one raises new questions, boop, 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 and we move on to the next one.
Wow, that's cool.
Listen,
It is so much fun. It is such a game.
Which country? Oh, go ahead. No, I was going to say, which country do you think is the most advanced in studying and trying to find this out? Or spending the most money?
Yeah, definitely the United States. I think for a long time, so there's two parts of this problem. If we're looking for life, right? We want to know about life in the universe. You can either be looking for, microbial life, non-intelligent life or non-technological life. Those are called biosignatures, right? So, for example, Earth would have no oxygen in its atmosphere if it wasn't for microbes. Microbes put the oxygen in the atmosphere. So you could look for oxygen. You could just look for, you could look for life that has nothing to do with technology. So those are called biosignatures. The United States has pumped a lot of money into the study of biosignatures. We're way ahead of, or one of the, we have great science going along those lines. NASA was kind of gun shy about doing technosignatures because of what we call the giggle factor, all the UFO stuff. And so, so only recently now has the money opened up for technosignatures. And so, but still I'd say the US is the one that's for both biosignatures and technosignatures, right? Because to me, let me just say, whether we find any kind of life we find is going to be mind blowing, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be, the Klingons, right? I mean, anything we find is going to tell us that we are not the only planet in the whole universe where this crazy thing called life formed. So to me, I don't care what kind of life we find. I think it's still going to change everything.
So do you think us having a defense system for space aliens
that's ridiculous.
is ridiculous?
I don't think we don't need a defense system for space aliens. The thing that we're building right now is like that thing, that DART that we just sent last time. That was really for asteroids, killer asteroids. We definitely want a space defense system for killer asteroids. But for aliens, we don't need anything like that. We're not going to see. I seriously doubt that anybody's coming here.
You guys.
I got to hear this.
It's math.
Okay.
Do you think, okay,
Is that something
first of all.
With a defense system?
Listen.
I'm listening. I got to hear this.
Listen. Math-wise, the universe is what it is. Have you ever seen this this little small documentary by Charles and Ray Eames, The Power of 10?
Oh yeah, Powers of 10.
Yes.
I remember you mentioned that before.
You need to watch that because you have no
It's
idea.
awesome. Check it out.
Listen,
it's awesome.
The Milky Way galaxy, okay, isn't even a molecule in the greater scheme of all that exists. It's not even a molecule. It's not even a grain of sand.
Yeah.
Shout out to Carl Sagan. But I'm telling you,
I get all that.
Any civilization that could make it close to us, because we're such on the distant tip of the Milky Way, if they can make it to us,
Nothing we can develop.
there's nothing we can do. But we should at least
Yeah,
have something.
yeah.
No, man.
What?
Put the money into just.
Oh, so you don't think that there's no aliens out there?
I know there's aliens out there, but I'm
Okay,
saying,
so why don't we need anything?
I just think a defense system.
I just think they look at us like ants, and it's like, why have a conversation with ants?
Perfect.
'Cause that's what we are.
That's like an ant farm developing a defense system against a human.
Yes, I think the most
Yeah,
that we could
right.
even
Giant
entice them
foot
is to come and
protectors,
step on
yeah,
us.
right.
I don't get that.
What do you mean? What do we have to offer them?
But that's what I'm saying. So why are we making it?
I don't know. It just sounds like lobbyists
I
making
don't think-
new money.
bro,
with
I
I
this.
don't think, but I haven't seen anything. I mean, I haven't seen like a huge amount of effort for like defending against aliens.
no
Like there's
such
this whole
thing,
thing
man.
going on with the UFOs and UAPs, and I got serious questions about that.
I got
For a lot
serious
of
questions
different
about it
reasons. I've never
too.
been a fan of UFOs. You know,
Unidentified.
Listen, I
but
agree with you.
I don't think defense against aliens, like it's not going to help.
It's
If,
not-
if an
if they
alien
made it
showed
here,
up here and
yeah.
wanted to take us over,
That's
we'd
what I'm
be
saying.
like,
If they made it
okay,
here, bro,
whatever, man.
it's not. We should
It's
be
not going
trying
to be
put money
Independence Day.
into
Let me put it that.
communicating and be diplomatic.
If an alien shows up, it's going on my
Exactly.
Instagram.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
There's no defense
If they
against
show
it.
up and they say, fam, you got one choice.
I'm going.
You're going.
Hold on. what's
You
my
can
choice?
either
What's my
stay and
choice?
get blown up, or you can get
I'm
on
going,
the
yeah.
ship.
I'm getting on the ship. I'm out.
Oh, I'd go.
out.
I'd go. I'd go to Mars. I mean, if there was a rocket ship to Mars, I mean, well, my beautiful wife, I wouldn't want to leave my beautiful wife. But
No,
if
I'm
it wasn't
bringing-
for
I'm
her,
bringing
I'd
a
go on the
couple
first
people.
ship to Mars, you know? I
So
mean,
you trying to
I'm
tell
going to
me
die
if
there. Who cares? I'd be on Mars.
Cocoon was real. You won't going.
Well,
If they weren't gonna blow us up, I wouldn't go.
we'll edit out
Hold
how
on, hold
quickly
on.
you said
So
that.
if Cocoon happened
Thank you.
in
No,
real
she
life,
understands. She
y'all
knows.
ain't
It's
going.
good.
Like
Good.
you remember they was getting the energy from the cocoons, right?
Yeah.
They was a nursing home. You ain't go. You wouldn't have got on that boat.
If I had a choice of staying and being with my family, I would do that.
Okay, you can bring your family with you.
No.
You ain't going.
Listen, you would
What if
probably
you could
go there
come
and have
back?
a
What if
nervous
they- wait,
breakdown,
what
bro.
if
I'm
they-
gone.
What if they brought you back? What if they said, look, we're going to take you, like in
But who gonna
E.T.,
trust that?
right? You're going to go,
You gonna
you're
trust
going to see
that?
everything,
Listen,
it's
if-
going to be awesome, and then you can come
if-
back and you can tell
Hold on,
people.
hold
If I knew that I could go and I would make it, I would
hold on.
definitely go to the International Space Station. I need to look at space one time in my life. The only reason why I wouldn't go
Bro.
right now because I just don't trust it.
I was about to say, how you gonna trust the alien to say I'm gonna bring you back? You can't even trust a human. Like, look, I'm gonna bring you back. You gonna trust an alien to take you light years away? I'm gonna bring you back if you don't like it. Man, no, I'm going. I'm going wherever. I'm going.
You're going regardless of whether they
Especially
bring
if
you.
they gonna blow us up. If they tell me, like, listen, 10 days, this is gone. I'm gonna give y'all 10 days to figure it out. Bring who you wanna bring, but this is over. Earth is over. You gonna stay here?
If my whole family's coming, I'm going.
You know, the Twilight Zone episode where the alien comes down and they're helping human beings and they're like, you know, curing cancer and everything. And then they say like, oh, we want some of you to come back,
That's it.
you know, with us
Cocoon.
and learn about our society. And there's like, you know, they've left this book that, you know, and so these team of scientists are trying to translate the book. And then just as these scientists are going on the spaceship and the door is closing, one of the guy, he finally translates the books and he said the book and it said, oh, and the name of the book is To Serve Man. And he yells at him, it's a cookbook.
Yo, listen. I'm
that's what you don't want to have
discretion,
happen.
man.
What movie is that?
It's from one of it's the old Twilight Zone, the
That's-
old Rod
I
Steiger
gotta see
Twilight
that.
Zones from
That's
a
crazy.
million billion years ago.
At the end,
Those were
they
great,
call it
man.
a
Those were
cookbook.
amazing shows.
Yeah, but you said you gonna trust them to bring you back.
No. Well, I mean, that was just a thought.
cookbook.
Look, if they
I
came
didn't sign
in-
a contract.
If they came here and they were like, if it was a
Yeah, right.
cocoon situation, I would go. I would go. God is God there too, like we always say. So look, he got me.
That's true. The universe is the universe.
Yeah. But like,
Well, you know,
they
it's
hostile?
a question because there's a group of people who are doing what they call METI, messaging extraterrestrial intelligence, and they're like sending messages out to, you know, distant planets. And there's a real argument in the community about whether or not they should be doing that. Like who gave them the right to like speak for us? Because who knows? Like, how do we know whether or not if there are aliens out there, whether they're going to be warlike or not warlike? We always kind of think that, oh, they're purely peaceful. But there could be wolves among the stars.
There's definitely wolves among the
That's
stars.
a big debate.
Yeah,
right
but
now.
you know what? Any kind of radio transmission, they've already heard it or whatever. What if there's certain music that they don't like,
I know you.
and they just show up and shit,
Go get them.
Like, we hate that music.
turn that off.
Have we heard
We don't like
any
it.
signals? Turn it off. If something comes here, this is what I'm saying. If it made it to us, their technology is more advanced than us, right?
100%.
So
1,000%.
So that means if they make it to us, we should obey. We should be obedient. Like they come, whatever they say, turn that music up, turn it off. Like, what are you gonna do? That is no defense system, bro.
Turn off the polka. No more
No more
polka.
polka, it's over.
We don't like that.
But okay, so listen, the way we talking, do any of us believe that they are here already? You say no.
Nope.
I do.
Nope.
I believe they've been here already.
Yeah, I know. I get a lot of people do, but I'm like, let me give you. Can I give you my reasons why? I don't think
4.8
they're
billion
here?
years.
I don't think. Oh, have they been there since we've been?
Have
there
they been
since-
here on this planet at some point? Yes. 4.8 billion years.
Why they leaving?
Well, okay. Have they ever been here? That's a different question. Are they here now? Have they ever been here?
Yeah.
If they ever
Yeah,
been
and that
here,
goes back to why you
did
guys
they
had me
leave?
on. Like maybe there was a civilization here for a while, but it was somebody passing through, who like stopped at the Earth, hung out, had a colony here or whatever, and then moved on.
But why they move on?
That's
no, we moving
possible.
on. We might move on.
There you go.
But here now.
If it gets so messed up. It just hit me. It just hit me.
Why won't you go? Hey, he said, wait, why would they do that? Oh, we leaving.
But we leaving if something happen. We don't want
It just dawned
We
on
don't
him.
like it. We've had it. Thank you very much.
They may have already
Thanks for
done
all
it
the
because,
fish.
we're doing the same thing.
I don't think aliens are here
Well,
right
the thing
now.
is,
How do you
Earth
know?
was not.
I don't know. What I'm saying, I don't think, like, what they doing here now? Like, if an alien here now,
Well,
this is the
that's
most
part of my
boring-
question, right? One of the reasons I don't like UFOs and UAPs don't make sense to me is like, okay, you're telling me a civilization that could travel across the stars, has that kind of technology, comes here, and then they keep messing with us, but like their cloaking devices don't really work, right? Like if they didn't want to be seen, they wouldn't be seen. Or like, what do we got? Like the teenagers
But
who
why-
can't figure out how to work the spacecraft. So it's just like, the fact that we're almost seeing them,
that's what I
it
don't
just
get.
makes me think like, come
Like,
on.
why would they come this far and hide? Like they're amongst us. Like that water bottle could be a real alien. Like, why would they do that? Like,
Why do we?
I'm messing with you,
Hey,
man.
why do we like voyeurism, right? Why do we like watching reality shows? Or why do we like watching movies? Or better yet, why do we like being in them? Why do we like Westworld?
I get what you're saying. That's
Great show.
That's.
I mean, people come, they want to come back and
Okay, now, I get
come
that.
to what is it called?
prehistoric joint, like some old, they studying us, looking at us.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I get
like
that. I
it's,
can go for that, but check this out. Why I don't believe that? Because all of these years, it ain't been one of them to just mess up. Like they all come to study and watch. Why it ain't been one get caught yet? Like you going to go study them? Let's go check it out. And then you
Get
just
caught in what way? The mask comes off or something?
You get caught. Like all this time, like you get captured.
Yeah, like you actually are able to get a good, not some blurry blob.
Yeah,
50
like,
years
they
of
come in
blurry
to check us
blobs
out,
on cameras,
voyeurism or whatever,
like a
study
super
us.
But how don't you know that they
like,
can't shapeshift? How don't you know that they can't like emulate us?
I believe they can do all that, but why?
Like
hasn't
we
one
have
been
listen,
caught yet?
we have CRISPR, right?
Yes.
They have it so that if you want to give yourself two noses, you can do that.
I get that.
You want to
but-
change it? You know it's true,
No,
Mr.
no, no.
Frank, right?
Listen, check it out.
If you look at
Well, yeah, no, it's true. Any alien, assuming
That CRISPR's
the
the-
levels of alien technology.
I get that. Listen,
they can,
listen.
like we have CRISPR, we have to harvest. We have to re-engineer like the with CRISPR you re-engineer, you fix the broke Gattaca and you
Yeah.
multiply it times 25,000. They put it in your body and it takes over, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden, eyes went from brown to blue.
I get that.
They may have it to a
No.
more succinct level, more synthesized level that they just put in little capsules like they
I
put and coffee espresso in the morning. Up, well, I'm gonna change my body. I'm gonna be a black person today. Like, you know,
I get that.
They may have that.
I believe, and even if that's true, this is all I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. If all that's true, they got it in a pill. Just think about this, cuz, and logic. Say if we're Earth, right, and then we so advanced, we found a mini Earth that we just found, right? Mm-hmm. And we found out that we way more technical, advanced than them, but we get to go there and just watch them. Yo, you want to go to mini Earth? Let's go watch them and see how they look. All this time, in human nature, you don't think like a group of like drunk teenagers ain't gonna go to mini Earth and get caught? Like, why do everybody that go there is so nice? They got CRISPR, they so good.
Who knows what the point of entry is? But how about this? How about this?
Yo,
how about we successfully colonize Mars? Okay. Then we realize that one of Jupiter's 83 moons is just like perfect. It's habitable. It's like it's damn near hospitable. Mm-hmm. Okay, we get there, and the humans that are the humanoids
that are there
are primal, okay?
Okay.
They just figured out how to start a fire.
Yeah, they just got to, okay, I got
okay.
it. Okay.
We are flying our ship, we're watching them, we don't land nothing. We fly our ship, you know, just above their like atmosphere or whatever, and then we decide to land. What would we do? What would we do? How would we treat those people? How would we communicate? What would we do?
We'll take over.
What would we do, Mr. Frank?
I think probably we wouldn't do very well given how our history is.
Yeah, we'll take over.
Have not been particularly kind to.
We treat them people wrong, take over their stuff.
Oh, you mean they'll do to what they've done to black people the entire time, all over again?
Exactly.
Okay.
But that's what I'm. But listen.
Work.
No. That's what I'm saying. So if that happens, right? That's like, how would those people be like? They never seen that.
Well, my point is that is how
I want to point out that the technology getting between the stars, right? When we talk about this, we're always like, yeah, well, they got technology. I think it's entirely possible that like interstellar travel is nearly impossible, you know, because the distances between the stars are so insane that like we kind of have this feeling like, oh yeah, technology just keeps increasing and it always gets better, and then like, you know, 1,000 years from now we're going to be like disappear here and reappear there with teleporters. You know, I mean, let me ask you this question. What's the fastest any average person, what's the fastest an average person travels today?
Jet, right?
Yeah, plane.
A jet, right?
Mach 9
it's about like 500 miles an hour.
Right.
What was the fastest that an average person could travel 60 years ago?
Not that far off, right? It was a couple. Still
exactly,
yeah.
Same thing. Technology plateaus.
No.
You know, you can get technology plateauing, and
so you don't think we're
interstellar
gonna be able to
travel
get, like,
is so insane that it may be that like the idea that nobody gets to travel
Right, but
between
you
the
just
stars, or not easily,
but you said
you know?
from man's point of view.
True. Yeah.
From man's point of view.
Yeah.
We only understand 5% or 4.5 to 5% of the observable, you know, universe. From man's
So this
point
other
of view.
being from the
you know,
70%.
you know what? Man has a habit of the minute that he understands, he sees something, identifies something, assesses something, and then begins to understand something. You know what he wakes up and says? I discovered blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
That's what man says. I discovered it. Mm-hmm. Christopher Columbus, for whatever reason, was so sure that this continent did not exist before him. Yeah. And the people that were here did not have a knowledge and a language and a culture of their own. So therefore, he must have discovered it. I'm sure Leif Erikson, you know, would call bull. But what I'm saying is that we don't discover. The old adage is the secret to everything. There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Under the sun.
Right.
There's another sun.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Under the S-O-N.
I agree. And so we can't say, I mean, you know, like what's going to happen with technology, right? It's hard to say what's going to happen with technology because we've lived in a really weird moment. Did you ever play Assassin's Creed, like one of the first Assassin's Creeds? You know, like the first one was in like 1400, and everybody's killing each other with like swords, or it was 1200, right? And then there was the Assassin's Creed 2, and it's 300 years later, and everybody's killing each other with swords. And then, you got to go on like 500 years before somebody's using a gun or something. And all I'm saying is that the universe is going to be the way the universe is, not our way. And we're used to this like rapid expansion in technology the last 100 years. But the universe may be like, yep, that's as far as you go. These are the laws of physics.
But see, I don't think that the universe has a ceiling. I think man has a ceiling. And I think man's ceiling comes from his hubris. That is the gravitational force to man's ambition is his hubris. Because he thinks that he discovers everything. He thinks that he is the author of everything, and he's not.
I go for that.
He's an observer,
so what do you mean when you
not
say
a
the
discoverer.
universe doesn't have a ceiling, right? Because that's an interesting idea. Like, so in Zen, we got this saying that the elbow only bends one way.
Yep.
That like no matter what, there's the way the world is, and to a life well lived is to live in accord with the way the world is.
Yeah.
So isn't it possible that the universe has a structure, and that structure may not allow warp drive? Like, we love warp drive, but maybe there's just no warp drive. Like that, the strings that the universe strung itself with won't allow that.
Could be, but again, I think what we're talking about here is the limitations of man.
Yeah.
Listen, the fastest, like you said, the fastest car in the world, that has a ceiling. It's never going to take flight. Right? But that's the car.
Right.
Doesn't mean that flight's not possible.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Just ask the birds.
Yeah.
They're laughing at this conversation. I think the greatest thing that we can do as a species is to get rid of the hubris and just be open, be more porous to other perspectives that may not align with our own understanding and our own research to get to those other places. As a musician, I'm okay as a producer when I'm producing for myself. But when I adjust all of my tunings creatively for other people to help them get out their ideas and to do things for them that they may not have thought about, I can't do that until I resign everything that I am to become what they are. That's where I discover new lands. That's where I discover new dimensions. And so I'm just saying, you understand this, by the way, because I had her look up your aspects, and you have 12th house placements, and you're connected to the beyond. And so your Venus in Virgo, you love all the scientific hard facts, right? But
absolutely.
Jupiter at 11 degrees of Pisces in 7th house. You have mystical experiences in your relationships. Does that sound right? Would your wife agree with that?
We'd have to ask her, but I mean, I've been practicing Zen for a long time, so I definitely am a scientist who has a sense of, with contemplative practice.
Oh, see, okay. Then you're Neptune and Scorpio in the 3rd. You're very intuitive. You have a very intuitive way of speaking. And yes, you do understand the aliens and astronomy and hard sciences, but in a spiritual way that I kind of understand music. So we have that connection there because you have a lot of esoteric experiences.
Yeah, and what's funny for me, I would agree with that. I mean, my first book was about science and spirituality. And what I was trying to argue was that, as you said, religion is always politics, but human spirituality is an experience. It's about experience, and that the experience of science, that doing science, AWE, is an experience that lots of scientists will say, oh yeah, I've had that experience. But that's like a fundamentally spiritual experience, to have that sense of the overwhelming. But for me, it gets expressed through the fact that science gives us structure.
Yes.
To me, there's a structure that I have to work within.
Yes.
And it's my nature that I'm not gonna step too far out of it, because I love what it's like. I think it was Brandon Marcellus said, "There's no freedom in freedom. There's freedom in form." And I love that idea, right? You're gonna do you're gonna try and do something new in a 3-act play. Yeah, there's definitely 3 acts, but you're gonna try and do something radically new within that.
Yep.
And science gives you this beautiful, powerful structure, which you can push past, but you got to push past through it, using its methods, its rules, its mathematics. And, that's what blows my mind about it and why I love it so much.
This is great. And I agree with you. There is definitely a spiritual aspect to science because there's absolutely a scientific aspect to spirituality.
That's interesting.
From the 12 disciples to the 12 houses to 12 months of the year, it's all math.
Well, it's funny because, my dilemma from this point of view, like a lot of my friends are, I got friends who call themselves shaman. I've got friends who are, definitely way more, crunchy, earthy crunchy than I am. And I love them, but of course I'm, there's like limits I'm going to go to.
Of course.
And so the dialogue between us is always very interesting because for me, those limits are important because they, this is what I love about science. It allows me to tell, what's bull and what's not.
Sure.
Right? I had this early experience with ancient aliens. So the first book about ancient aliens was Eric von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods.
I know.
And I read that book when I was like 12.
That book.
He just,
This is old school.
he was just kind of like on the very beginning of it. I'm not going to say anything mean, but he was just in the very beginning of it. It's like,
Okay.
the alien thing is so much more sophisticated than his walking into it. But listen, he was thinking about these things in the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah, that's what
Sorry, finish what you were saying.
Yeah, so I read that book, and I'm like 12. I was already, I knew I wanted to be an astronomer from when I was 5 years old, So I read everything about astronomy. So I read this book that says, Easter Island with those giant stone heads on a, there's no trees.
Yeah.
Only aliens could have moved the stone heads.
Yeah.
And I'm telling everybody about it. I'm telling my dad. My dad's like rolling his eyes. And so, I believed it. And then I saw this documentary with Carl Sagan, 1976, 77, that's just like talks to a bunch of, anthropologists about all this stuff. And they're like, no, we don't need aliens for this. We can totally explain this. Like Easter Island, the reason why there's no trees on the island is because everybody cut the trees down to move the giant stone heads to roll them around. So I got really pissed. I really felt, especially from Jersey, right? I'd been taken. Somebody had bullied me. And what I love about science is it allows me, within the context of the questions it can ask, it allows me to be able to sort out what makes sense, what is, what fits the currents of the universe, and what is just fiction. And fiction's great. I mean, if it's great to have fiction, but I don't want to believe in aliens. I want to know. And science is the way I'm going to be able to know.
But I just need you to have the same sort of compassion for spirituality that you did for science. Because there's been a lot of scientific quacks too. There's been a lot of science bull. Measuring the size of different races' skulls to determine their intelligence. It's just tons of stuff. By the way, listen, as Black people, it's a beautiful thing that we still love science based on all the scientific, things that have been the tests that have been run on us in this country. I mean, giving all those airmen syphilis just to see, you know what I mean? Or the idea,
totally.
the concept of the housing project. If you really do the history on why that was there and why it was started, it's like
project.
But science is science and spirituality is spirituality. We just have to allow for there to be, the coexistence of both. I mean, Galileo felt that way. Copernicus felt that way. Isaac Newton felt that. Isaac Newton was obsessed with astrology. So was Galileo, obsessed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, the problem really is literalism. Like there's nothing to you but little hard atoms bouncing around. That's called reductionism. Now where the boundaries are, that's where the interesting conversation gets into, right? So you really like astrology. I'm suspicious of astrology. All right, how do we have that conversation that, sort of tries to understand? One of my Zen teachers was really into astrology, and for him it was like, look, everything's just arranged in, these are just the arrangements of things in the world. And we had great conversations about it. We didn't convince each other, but they were beautiful conversations.
I find astrology to be more scientific than not. It's just basically saying each planet has gravitational influence over certain aspects to existence.
So gravity, you can calculate the gravitational influence, and it's so tiny that it's hard to say that this did anything, right? That there was any kind of material effect. Now, but again, maybe there's deeper levels that these works on. But from the astronomer's point of view, it's hard to see the causal influence, right? Because that's really, from a scientist, everything's about causes and effects. But again, maybe there's deeper levels to what we think are causes. But again, probably for me as a scientist, I'm not going to, it's going to be harder for me to go there. But it's going to be a good conversation.
Man, if you were to look at it like science fiction and just get in it because it's fun for you to look at what other people thought, I bet you'd walk away with probably 45% more of an understanding of it, and I bet there would be a shifting in your appreciation for it. Because I think you appreciate, appreciate the fact that maybe it exists and that, people subscribe and they have the right to do that. But I bet if you did it for shits and giggles, just like a basic course to just understand, I bet some correlations would pop up in your mind and you'd go, you know what? I get what Galileo was obsessed with. I get what Isaac Newton.
Yeah, because it is interesting, right, that all the, Kepler was casting, I'm pretty sure it's Kepler, he was casting us, that was one of the main ways astronomers in the early days, before astronomy became a science, astrology and astronomy were very closely linked. Chemistry and alchemy were very closely linked. They hadn't split apart. So, but I love science fiction. I've seen everything. I've read, I love science fiction. So, and I often rely on science fiction to take me places, to sort of allow me to think about ideas that, I might not have been able to, see past the boundaries. So, so I do love, I definitely I'm a fan.
So listen, give it a shot. Give Astrology 101.
All right, I will.
Give it a shot.
That could be a conversation we can have and see.
Well then, okay, so cool. So if you'll come back on, we'll give you enough time to get a basic, understanding, take a little course, if you will. No, not 3 days. But I would love to have you back on. And listen, if you get in there and you learn everything that you learn and you vehemently disagree, I would love for you to come back and tell our audience why you disagree. However, if something dawns on you, I want to know which parts clicked for you.
That'll be interesting. Right. If you were a science fiction writer, and you wanted to have some kind of you wanted to create a story that had a scientific basis for astrology, or the I Ching, or these other kinds of, what would you use? What would you draw? Because when I did this, when I was the consultant for Doctor Strange, this was the interesting conversation that Scott Derrickson, the director, and I had about Doctor Strange is a magician, or he's a sorcerer. And Marvel Universe was very grounded in science, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. How are we going to do this, right? How are you going to have Doctor Strange's, and so we had lots of really interesting conversations about how to ground that idea, which was, interesting for me too, of thinking about which parts of the science have open ends to them. So, all right, listen, I'm down for that. I would totally do
Amazing.
that. Whichever, I will engage with it honestly.
Okay.
I really will.
Okay. Okay. So listen, our audience, you guys hear this? He's gonna jump in. I can't wait. We're gonna do it.
All right. Excellent. We're there.
Yeah. Listen, you're a super smart guy, man, and it's such an honor to talk to you. Scott, you were gonna say something.
Oh, it's the other way around. But this has been a great conversation with you guys. I really enjoy it.
Thank you, man.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I was going to say, if people wanted to find you are you on social media or anything?
Yeah, I got Twitter. What is it? @AdamFrank4 is my Twitter handle. I don't do Instagram. I probably should. And then also on Facebook, I've got an author account for the Adam Frank, Facebook author, and that's where my book. And then I got a bunch of books people can choose from. The last one was about the one on climate change and aliens, and the idea that climate change is is something that probably we should have expected to happen. And if we're smart enough, we'll get through it. If not, we're just going to be on the cosmic waste.
We're going to be on the waste
bin. So
we're going to be on the cosmic waste.
Awesome.
Amazing.
I don't think we're going to make it, bro.
No, we're not going to make it.
We're going to make it. We will.
We're not here.
I have faith in us.
We're going to be on one of the 83 moons of Jupiter. Taking over. So did we come to the conclusion? Do we feel like aliens are here now? We say no.
No, y'all don't think they are. I do.
Okay.
I don't. I'm voting no.
Yeah.
That's my vote.
But they coming.
I bet if you go to the Pentagon, there's
Yeah, I'm gonna say, do you think if Area 51, 54,
yeah, hell yeah.
you think they got an alien
I
right
think that's
now?
where they go and like reverse engineer things to get ahead of like not only the space race but the arms race.
Do you think we have an alien in our possession?
I
on
think
Earth?
they have been here before, and I think maybe I don't know. Yes.
Do we have one?
Do we have one in our possession?
I vote
or
for
have we
no.
had one?
They've never been here before.
Have we? I feel like if we had one, we still got it. Like we ain't let it go. That's another thing. They're not letting you go back, bro.
Yeah.
They're not letting you go back. We perfect. Before we go, we aliens. They take us to their planet, and you like, look, this ain't what I thought. I made a mistake. What time y'all leave? It's
not what I signed up for. I wanted the deluxe
you
package.
You go to every 51 of their world,
And you never leaving.
You never leave it.
Well, fat burger. Hey, I'm with fat burger, marshmallows.
That's what it is. You're cooked.
I want some of them new human races Pharrell making over there.
Oh yeah, we got those.
And you know what? Weekends, I need to leave the base. I'm really sorry, but I need to leave the base, and I gotta go hang out in the casinos and roll dice, baby.
Yo, they in there though, dude.
Rick and Morty.
I believe it.
It's all Rick and Morty. You know.
I don't think we got enough.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Yes, man. This was a pleasure.
Oh, it's my pleasure.